What's up, good people? Rob here, Old City Vapor, with another episode of Weird Wednesday. Okay. Today, I have been vaping some of this juice here by Poet. This is Amaretto Nightcap, and it is a 3 milligram nic level. And it is quite tasty, if I do say so myself. So let's get this story started. Um, as many of you know, I live here in St. Augustine, Florida, nation's oldest city. Lots and lots of history from hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And heck, there's even history being made to this day. But this particular story, not really a ghost story, but has its ghost qualities about it, and perhaps is in fact a ghost story to a certain extent. This is about a murder that happened January 23rd, 1974, here in St. Augustine, in the little quiet town of St. Augustine, the way it was back then. I was a wee young lad of about 10 or 11 years old. The murder that happened, the lady's name was Athelia Ponzel Lindsley. And I remember when this happened. I remember the day it happened, and the day after it happened, and the day after, and it was a small town. Everybody pretty much knew everybody, so everybody that was anybody was talking about it. I mean, kids are talking about it at school. You go home, you're eating dinner, your parents are talking about it, everybody's talking about it, the neighbors are talking about it, they're talking about it on the news, on the radio. I mean, it was big news. And the other part of this murder is, to this day, it is still an unsolved murder mystery. Never solved the crime. And the way the story went down was Miss Lindsley came home. She was, at one time an actress, pretty well-to-do lady in the town. She had married Mr. Lindsay, who was also kind of a bigger player in town here. I had a really nice house, which still sits on Marine Street. I will put a picture of the house in the video so you can see it. Maybe some of you might be familiar with this story if you know anything about this area, or have seen one of the many shows that was done on this crime, or read the book on this crime called Bloody Sunset. This happened, like I said, January 23rd, 1974, about 5:30 in the afternoon. So that time of the year here in Florida, that's right before, right at sunset pretty much. Still light, but the sun's sinking down. Miss Lindsay came home from some shopping and drove down the driveway, came in the back door of her house, set her groceries down, walked to the front door, through the house to her front door, opened the door, went out on her front steps to retrieve her mail from the day, and was greeted by a supposed middle-aged man in dark pants, a white shirt, wielding a machete, who began hitting her. Put her hand up, got one in the hand, one in the arm, and several in the shoulder, neck, and head area, with the main focus being the neck area. And pretty much not totally technically, but pretty much chopped her head off. It was hanging on by a thread. Uh, right on the front steps of her house, in not broad daylight, but daylight still. One of the neighbors, their son, who lived next door on the, if you're looking at the house, it would be on the right hand side. Uh, that neighbor's, their son came out, heard the commotion, came out, and supposedly saw what was going on, called to his parents and said, Mr. Stanford is hitting Miss Lindsay. Mr. Stanford lived on the left hand side of Miss Lindsay. Um, that's supposedly what went down. But it was never proven who done it. Um, Mr. Lindsay had several, witnesses that put him at a different place at the time of the crime. Uh, the guy that, the kid that saw it, he couldn't make a positive ID, even though he thought for sure that it was Mr. Stanford. Um, a lot of the crime scene, wasn't really handled the way it should have been, is pretty much the consensus of everyone in the town. uh, it was, I remember riding by on my bicycle with a couple of my friends, and it was a scene, and they're I look and they're out there, spraying the sidewalk down with the hose. There's people running through the lawn, and this and that, and there's just people everywhere, and it, I don't know. Even as a kid, I you know I watched Ironside and all these shows, and I thought, well, that's weird. They don't seem to be like collecting evidence too properly. I don't know. Anyways, that's kind of how the story goes, and a lot of the evidence that was collected, a lot of the paperwork, photos, this and that, whatever, a lot of that stuff has disappeared over the years. There has been a group started that is kind of, trying to get this crime scene reopened. It's a cold case, whatever. They're trying to get it reopened. Um, there's supposedly some new evidence, this and that. Uh, Machete, bloody clothes, what have you. There was, of course, a reward for anybody, that could give them information on this crime. Um, no machete, no evidence, nothing was found. Um, until a county worker, city worker, I think his name was Dewey Lee, I believe. I'm not 100% sure on that. He, there was a $500 reward supposedly. He was like, I'm gonna go find the machete, and he went down to a marsh area and kind of tromped out and looked around and came back with a bag full of muddy, bloody clothes and a machete and a pair of shoes. They did find some blood in Mr. Stanford's car. He was like, hey, cut myself. It could happen. Um, Miss Lindsay's husband at the time, like I say, he was kind of a well-to-do man about the town at the time. He was a mayor, I believe, at one point. Um, he had witnesses, put him at a different location at the time as well. Of course, he was looked at as a suspect and was pretty much, let go right away. The main focus was on Mr. Stanford. Um, Later on that year, this happened in January, November, I want to say November 3rd, 1974. Miss Lindsay, one of her friends, who happened to be a newspaper reporter, a writer, went out to walk her dog. Her name was Miss Bemis. She went out to walk her dog in the, right before sunset, and didn't come home that night. I believe they found her the next day in an empty lot, uh, dead as a doornail, with her brains bashed in, which I believe was with like a cinder block or big rock or something. Um, Somebody had killed her. Just coincidence? I don't know. She was a friend, Miss Lindsay. She was supposedly gathering information. Uh, Let me put you on hold for just a moment, and I'll be right back. So, like I was saying, phone always rings in the middle of a video. Um, yeah, coincidence? I don't know. Just a friend of hers that happened to be a reporter that happened to be gathering information on the crime and happened to end up being killed quite violently. Again, another unsolved mystery to this day. Don't know who done it. Uh, so I don't know. Strange. Like I say, the picture you can see the house in the video. Um, it's it's been bought and sold several times. I know I go on a ghost tour every once in a while. Me and my wife went on one about a year ago, and one of the stops was the Lindsay house, the murder house. Um, it's kind of funny. I mean, like I'm a local here, and you obviously I grew up, saw it the day it happened, heard about it, talked about it. Uh, just kind of funny to be on a ghost tour, with tourists and stuff, and hear everybody talking about it, and everybody's got their own opinions and this and that. A lot of people have studied it. Everybody's taking pictures. It was at night, everybody's taking pictures. Okay, I took a few myself, um, but there's been supposedly reports of a ghost on the steps. We took several pictures and didn't really get anything in any of them except for one. One picture that we had was pretty strange. Uh, you know, couldn't really tell anything. It was like an orb thing. But I will say that one of the ladies on the tour that was taking pictures did have a picture that she was, looking at her pictures and was just kind of like, and then had to show everybody and actually showed the lady that people that were doing the ghost tour, showed it to them, and they wanted her to email them a copy of that picture, because out of all the pictures that looked normal, there was one that looked like somebody was standing, like a shadow was standing in the doorway like on the steps. Pretty strange. Coincidence again? I don't know, but it was pretty strange looking. I asked the lady if she would forward that to me or whatever, and I did. She never did. I don't know, so I don't have that picture to show you. And the picture that I have, it's just not really worth showing. Just a weird little orb in the picture, which could have been a bug or anything. But it is on the ghost tour here. Um, and there have been several reports, sightings, whatever, of a ghost on the steps. Who knows? Um, but I do know that it did actually happen. The crime actually did happen. It is definitely unsolved. Several months later, one of her friends who was doing her own digging into that whole situation ended up dead with her brains bashed out. Um, and again, that was unsolved. So now's where my part of the story comes in. Uh, you know, weird Rob. Here we go. Um, I was, this was I was 10 or 11 then, so I was probably, 15, 14 or 15 when this happened. So it's several years later. Um, I am at the beach surfing, you know, summer day, surfing. Waves were really good. A friend of mine was there, and he had a Jeep. He was several years older than me. Um, he was probably about 7 or 8 years older than me. He had a Jeep, and he was like, "Hey, the tide's right. Do you want to go to the other beach and surf? The beach across the inlet." And I was like, "Yeah, man." I wasn't driving at the time. Um, I was like, "Yeah, I'm down for it. Let's go." He's like, "All right, cool. We'll stop by my house on the way, and grab some water and maybe grab a sandwich or something." And I'm like, "Yes, sounds like a winner to me." I knew the guy, surfed with him. Never been to his house before though. So we're on the way to his house, and we go over one bridge through town, over the other bridge. We're on the island heading out to the beach, and I'm like, "Where do you live at, by the way?" And he's like, "Oh, this house over here." So we pull up to it, and nope, it's not the house where this happened. But we pull up, pull in the driveway, and he goes, when we go in, he goes, "Kind of be quiet." Uh, he goes, "I got to tell you," he goes, my roommate is home." And I was like, "Oh, who's your roommate?" And he goes, "Oh, he's this old guy that I rent a room from here. He's not really my roommate. Well, he is, but he owns the house, and he's renting out a room to me." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. I'll be quiet. Not a problem." And I said, "Who is he?" And he goes, "His name's Mr. Lindsley." And I was like, said, "Is he like an older dude?" He's like, "Yeah, he used to be like the mayor or something." And I'm like, "No way." I'm thinking, holy cripers, this is too weird to be true. So we're going up to the front door, and the first thing I noticed, well, I'm thinking, well, this is cool. This is kind of cool. Gonna go in and hang out in this dude's house and get up to the front steps, going in the door, and I look over, and again, it was one of those like cartoon moments. It was like, I look, and leaning up on the front, right by the front door, right up the steps, is a freaking machete. I kid you not. Uh, I'm just like, I did like a double, triple, quadruple take, just like camera zoned in on a machete on the front steps. Now, I don't know if maybe you guys find that strange that you're going into a house of a man that his wife was murdered on the front steps of his previous house with a machete, would keep a machete on his front steps of his house leaning up against the wall there. Uh, I found it a little strange. That's just me. Um, so we go in, and my friend, his name was Dean, he was like, "Be quiet. He's a little weird." And I'm thinking, you don't say. Um, and he didn't know anything about this. He had just moved here. He'd only been living here maybe a year or so at the time. Um, so he didn't know, you know, the, the whole shenanigans of what went down years previous to this. Uh, so we walk in, and I'm like, my head's on a swivel, man. I'm looking everywhere. I'm checking everything out. Uh, we get in the house, and we're walking through. We come in the living room, and it's like, there's Mr. Lindsley sitting on the couch in the living room, and he's like, "Hey, who's your friend?" He's talking to my friend Dean. My friend introduces me, he's, one of my surfing buddies. We stopped by to grab, some water, and we're going to head to the beach and go surfing. He's like, oh, okay. Let me show you what I got going on here. And I'm standing there. I haven't said a word. I'm looking here. I'm looking there. I'm looking at the wall over the fireplace. And it was truly bizarre in the sense that I'm looking at the wall, the mantle and all over the fireplace, and there are freaking knives and machetes and blades of all sorts on the wall, on the mantle. They're freaking everywhere. Is that weird? No, it gets weirder. It gets weirder. I look over and I see Mr. Lindsley sitting on the couch. And he's like, check out my newest invention. And he throws me a bra, a woman's bra. And I'm like, oh, well, cool. I'm looking at my friend Dean. I'm looking at him. I don't know what to do with this thing. And he goes, no, check it out. Look on the inside. And I'm looking at it. It was like a leopard skin, pretty good sized bra. And it was lined with fur, like rabbit fur or some sort of fur. And I'm just, it's a visual bombardment of all kinds of stuff that's going on at this point in time. I'm holding a bra lined with fur. I'm looking at this dude on the couch whose wife got killed with a machete, and I'm looking at all these blades and machetes and knives and shit everywhere. And it was like a morbid festival of sorts going on here. He's like, that's my newest invention. What do you think, man? And I'm thinking, it's a bra, but he goes, it's fur lined. It's fur lined. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool, I guess. Why is it fur lined? And he goes, well, it gets chilly in the winter and women's got to keep their boobies warm, don't you know? And I was like, well, I guess I do now. And no, that's not all of it. He had panties too. And yep, they were lined with fur. And he had not just one or two pair. There was a whole pile of women's undergarments and a whole pile of weird fabric and a whole pile of weird furs that he was sewing into these women's bras and panties. Again, I thought it was a little strange, a little weird. Maybe that was just me. I don't know. Do you guys think that was a little strange? Heck, I don't know. I gave him the bra back and I was like, that's pretty cool. And he goes, that's damn cool. I'm going to make $1 million off of this. And I was in no mood to argue with him because, hell, he could just whip out a blade off the wall and whew, Michonne my head right off. I've seen The Walking Dead and I know how that girl can swing a blade. Strange, huh? I was just like, yeah, man, let's get some, what did we come here for? I'm ready to go. We leave and he's like, you boys have a good time and I'm just going to continue my work. And I'm like, cool, brother. Get on, go for it. We get out in the car and my friend was like, I told you he's a little weird. And I'm like, dude, you don't know half of it. I told him the whole story, the whole rest of the way to the beach. Where I told him the story of what happened, and what I saw and things I heard, and he was accused and this and that, and I was like, don't you think it's a little weird? He's got all these freaking knives and machetes. Who puts machetes on their wall, and who keeps a machete on their front porch on the outside of their front door? Like if somebody was going to break in, and they come up and, well, oh, hell, there's a machete. I'll just grab that too. if you're going to keep a machete by the door, you would think you would keep it on the inside. Am I correct on that? I think I am. Anyway, told him the story, and he was just kind of like, he was driving, and he was just kind of like, he didn't have a whole lot to say other than his eyes were just increasingly getting bigger. And it wasn't too long after that that my old friend Dean moved on. He was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get a place. I'm gonna move. Things are getting strange around the old house there." And I was like, "Yeah, man, I don't blame you one bit. I didn't go back, even though I wanted to, but I didn't. I went home that night and was talking to my mom, and I kind of brought up the whole thing, the crime and everything, and she was talking about it, and I said, "You know, Mr. Lindsay?" And she's like, "Yeah, he was accused of the crime, but they pretty much, figured he didn't have anything to do with it." And I was like, "Yeah, I was in his house today, and let me tell you this." I told her everything I saw, and she was just like, "Don't go in there anymore. Don't hang out with your friend Dean over there anymore." Yeah, I was like, you think different about him now, don't you, Mom? Yeah, it was strange. It was weird. But hey, that's me. That's why I make videos called Weird Wednesday, because somehow I always get unknowingly interjected into a weird situation, and that was just another one that was strange. I'll put links below to some of the stuff I talked about, to maybe the book. You guys can check it out, read about it. I know my part of the story isn't in any book or any story that I know of, because I've only told a few people about that. Um, yeah, so you're probably not going to find that, but Scout's honor, it did happen exactly the way I just told you. Pretty weird. Gotta go. I think I'm going to have a vape. Amaretto Nightcap from Poet. Some tasty stuff. I'll do a review on it, and a few other juices from the Poet line will be coming up soon. You guys have a good one. Thanks as always for watching, and thanks to my new subscribers, and I will talk at you soon. Bye bye.